This is a reproduction of Sinbad the Sailor. Although the outer binding isn't an exact reproduction, it is inspired by the design at the front, the cover of the first edition. I'll put some information down below for you to take a look at some of those photos, as well as some information about the first edition. This one here is by Easton Press. This is one of only 2 Easton Press books I owned, and so all the information's here. Sinbad the Sailor and Other Stories from the Arabian Nights, from the translation of Sir Richard Burton, illustrated by Edwin Dulac. Richard Burton is one of many translators of the 1001 Nights, or also known as the Arabian Nights, and of course Edwin Dulac is one of the many illustrators thriving in the early 1900s, known as the Golden Age of Illustrations. Again, I'll put a link down below to have a look, so that you can take a look at who else is on the list. The other, of course, that I will show you the work of is Arthur Rackham, as well as K. Nielsen. So this is by Edwin Dulac. And again, there is a homage there to the Arabian Peninsula and their culture. Interestingly though, what I found is that there isn't any information here about the illustrations. So there is nothing here. I've looked for it, unless I'm missing something. Nothing here says, if you lose this piece of sheet here, so I'm not quite sure if that's typical of Easton Press. So you see there, it's there's nothing there, and then it goes straight to the illustration list. And the design here reminds me very much of the holy book of Islam, the Al-Quran. The green, of course, the green is very much associated with the Muslim symbology, and all these edges here, but I want to show you it's gold embossed on this there. Absolutely no information about the original publisher or the illustrator, which is Dulac, on the book, in the book itself, other than this piece of paper. So I found that highly unusual. Let me show you. Put up a bit. It is also a time, I believe, in Europe in the early 1900s where there is a fascination. So there's a ribbon marker there in gold, quite complementary to the whole design. A fascination with the Eastern, quote-unquote, Eastern culture. And so, although the stories here, I believe, if memory serves, I haven't read this in a long time, happened in the Arabian Peninsula, a lot of these illustrations seems very East Asian to me. At the very least, very Turkish or Persian. We'll have a look at another illustration here. The Old Man of the Sea. And so what's interesting about Sinbad the Sailor is that it is actually not an original part of the Arabian Nights cycle. The French translator, one of the first, if not the first, to translate the Arabian Nights into another language or into one of the European languages, translated the manuscript into French. And Sinbad was supposed to be derived from an entirely different manuscript than the 1001 Nights manuscript, which he obtained as an antique dealer. He obtained that manuscript later on when Sinbad the Sailor becomes so popular. The original manuscript that Sinbad the Sailor was supposed to belong to have been lost. And so after Sinbad the Sailor was so popular, his publisher insisted that he produce some more. So he acquired the next bunch of manuscript, which turned out to be the 1001 Nights, or known as Of Laila wa Laila. I don't speak Arabic, so I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. And I also don't speak French, or I don't know if Galland is the right way to pronounce his name, Galland. A lot of the translations of the 1001 Nights or the Arabian Nights are actually from his French translation. There's a variety of others by Lane, by Mardus, by Richard Burton, which is this one is by one of Burton's. Burton's and Lane are very known for providing extensive footnotes, and Burton was very well known for being quite fascinated by the sort of erotica element of the Arabian Nights or the 1001 Nights. And the other two most popular stories, Aladdin and the Magic Lamp, or the Aladdin and it's called something else, and Alibaba. So Alibaba, Aladdin, and Sinbad, none of them are actually part of the 1001 Nights cycle, which is kind of ironic because they are one of the most popular, at least in the Western world, of the 1001 Nights. So Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp. So Aladdin and Alibaba and the 40 Thieves are actually stories retold by Maronite Christian Syrian woman by the name of Hannah Diab, and it's not part of the 1001 Nights cycle. And so in a lot of translations these days, the 1001 Night translations, Sinbad is usually sometimes published in a separate book, almost like an appendix or an addendum, like an extra. Oh, by the way, there is this very famous tale, but it's not quite part of the original manuscript, but we're going to include that anyway, because for the past 100 or 200 years, it's have embedded in popular culture as part of the 1001 Nights cycle. And so recently, if you remember, I have released or let go of my 6 volumes, Folio Society, 1001 Nights by Mardus, because Mardus, sorry, again, French name, can't pronounce it, because that's so beautiful, because it's not actually, there's a lot of embellishment, and as Galland took down notes, the stories of Sinbad and Aladdin and Alibaba down, he embellished as well. I think the notes survived, and from those notes you can tell that he sort of embellished the story a bit. So yeah, so this is the illustration by Dulac there, and this is Burton's translation of Sinbad. I'm still very intrigued that there is nothing in the book itself about Dulac and about Burton, other than information here. So any of you more familiar with Easton Press can chime in maybe down below as to what the story is. The only other Easton Press I have is Peter Pan in Kensington Garden, illustrated by Arthur Rackham, which is a facsimile of the first edition, before a prequel to the Peter Pan story that most of us are familiar with thanks to Disney. And that will be in our next video. So I will talk to you then. Bye.